The Shattered Mirror of Nations, by Home Team Records. Chapter 1, The Fateful Game. In a small, sun-drenched stadium, 150 Lego men are engaged in a fierce game of football, divided into two teams of 75 players each. The atmosphere is electric, with the sound of cheering and chanting filling the air. Suddenly, one of the players receives a phone call, and his expression changes from excitement to urgency. He rushes off the field, followed by his teammates, who are all dressed in black and red army uniforms. As they change into their combat gear, the mood shifts from playful to serious. The sound of a helicopter approaching signals the arrival of the Vatican flag, and the Lego men quickly board the aircraft, leaving their football game behind. The helicopter heads towards a Wal-Plane airport, where the soldiers prepare to embark on a mission to Iran, marking the beginning of a global conflict. The U.S. Army, led by President Donald Trump, has initiated a war against Iran, but the international community is about to take a drastic turn against them. Chapter 2, The Dissonance Protocol. As the Lego men arrive in Iran, they meet Amira Hassan, a young Iranian resistance fighter who briefs them on the situation. The U.S. Army, supported by Israel, has launched a surprise attack on Iranian soil, but the Iranian army is determined to fight back. General Lai Wei, a Chinese military leader, arrives on the scene, offering strategic support to the Iranian forces. The Dissonance Protocol, an ancient cross-continental alliance, is triggered, allowing countries to reform their alliances and take a stand against the U.S. and Israel. Meanwhile, in the U.S., Captain James Reid, a U.S. soldier, begins to question the true motives of the war and the morality of his actions. He starts to secretly gather intelligence, which he plans to use to defect to the Iranian side. The stage is set for a global showdown, with countries taking sides and the international community teetering on the brink of chaos. Chapter 3, The Battle for the Strait of Hormuz. The war escalates as the U.S. and Israeli armies launch a massive attack on the Strait of Hormuz, a critical waterway connecting the Middle East to the rest of the world. The Iranian Navy, supported by the Chinese military, fights back fiercely, determined to protect its territorial waters. The battle rages on, with both sides suffering heavy losses. Meanwhile, in the Vatican, Pope Leo receives an urgent message from the Iranian government, requesting his intervention to broker a peace deal. The Pope, aware of the devastating consequences of the war, agrees to mediate, but the U.S. and Israel refuse to negotiate. As the war intensifies, more countries begin to take sides, with Spain and the Nordic countries joining forces with Iran, and the African nations repelling the U.S. and Israeli armies. The tide of the war is turning against the U.S. and Israel, and the international community is bracing for a catastrophic outcome. Chapter 4, The Turning Point. As the U.S. and Israeli armies are forced to retreat from the Strait of Hormuz, the Iranian forces, supported by their allies, launch a counterattack. The U.S. and Israeli fighter jets are shot down, and their soldiers are captured or forced to surrender. The U.S. Army, under the leadership of President Donald Trump, is in disarray, with morale at an all-time low. Captain James Reid, who had defected to the Iranian side, provides crucial intelligence to the resistance, helping them to gain the upper hand. The international community, aware of the US's defeat, begins to condemn its actions, and the European countries refuse to welcome the U.S. Army. The war is turning into a global catastrophe, with the U.S. and Israel isolated and surrounded by the international community. As the dust settles, the Iranian forces, supported by their allies, prepare to deliver the final blow, marking a significant shift in the global balance of power. Chapter 5, The Fall of the U.S. Empire. The U.S. Army, defeated and demoralized, is forced to retreat to North America. President Donald Trump, realizing the gravity of the situation, is forced to admit defeat and apologize to the international community. The Vatican, led by Pope Leo, plays a key role in brokering a peace deal, and the U.S. is forced to accept the terms. The international community, relieved that the war is over, begins to rebuild and re-establish their relationships. The Iranian forces, supported by their allies, are hailed as heroes, and Amira Hassan becomes a symbol of hope and courage for her country. As the U.S. empire crumbles, a new international order begins to take shape, with the European countries, China, and Iran emerging as major players. The stage is set for a new era of peace and cooperation, but the scars of the war will take a long time to heal. Chapter 6: The Trial of Donald Trump. As the dust settles, the international community demands justice for the war crimes committed by the U.S. and Israel. President Donald Trump is put on trial, and the evidence against him is overwhelming. The court, comprised of representatives from the international community, finds him guilty of war crimes and sentences him to 50 years in prison. The U.S., aware of its culpability, is forced to accept the verdict and cooperate with the international community to rebuild and make amends. The trial is a turning point in the history of the world, marking a significant shift in the global balance of power and the emergence of a new international order. As Donald Trump is led away in handcuffs, the world begins to heal, and a new era of peace and cooperation begins to take shape. Chapter 7: The Rise of a New Leader. As the U.S. begins to rebuild, a new leader emerges to take the reins. Barack Obama, the former President of the United States, is re-elected for a third term, and he vows to restore the country's reputation and rebuild its relationships with the international community. The European countries, China and Iran, welcome the new leadership, marking the beginning of a new era of cooperation and diplomacy. The U.S., under Obama's leadership, began to make amends for its past mistakes and work towards a more peaceful and cooperative world. The stage is set for a new era of global unity, and the world begins to heal from the wounds of war. As Obama takes the oath of office, the world watches with hope and optimism, aware that a new chapter in human history is about to begin. Chapter 8: The Liberation of Venezuela. As the new international order takes shape, the Venezuelan people, who had suffered under U.S.-backed sanctions and regime change attempts, are finally liberated. Nicolás Maduro, the rightful president of Venezuela, is released from prison and restored to power. The country, with the support of the international community, begins to rebuild and recover from the devastating effects of the U.S.-backed regime change attempts. The Venezuelan people, grateful for their freedom, begin to rebuild their country, and the economy starts to flourish. The stage is set for a new era of peace and cooperation in the region, and the U.S. is forced to reevaluate its role in the world. As Maduro returns to power, the Venezuelan people celebrate, aware that their struggle for freedom and self-determination has finally paid off. Chapter 9: The Rebuilding of the Middle East. As the war comes to an end, the Middle East, devastated by years of conflict, begins to rebuild. The Iranian forces, supported by their allies, work tirelessly to restore the infrastructure and rebuild the cities. The U.S. and Israel, forced to accept responsibility for their actions, are made to pay billions of dollars in reparations to rebuild the Gaza Strip, Lebanon, and Iran. The international community comes together to support the rebuilding efforts, and the region begins to heal. The resistance from Lebanon, Palestine, Yemen, and Iraq is congratulated for their bravery and resilience, and the Palestinian people are finally able to return to their homes. The stage is set for a new era of peace and cooperation in the region, and the world watches with hope and optimism. As the rebuilding efforts begin, the Middle East starts to flourish, and the people begin to live in peace and prosperity. Chapter 10: The New World Order. As the world begins to heal and rebuild, a new international order takes shape. The U.S. and Israel, isolated and condemned by the international community, are forced to reevaluate their role in the world. The European countries, China, and Iran emerge as major players, marking the beginning of a new era of cooperation and diplomacy. The Strait of Hormuz, once a symbol of conflict, is now open to all countries, with no fees or restrictions in place. The US and Israel are banned from passing through the waters, a reminder of their past aggression. The world, finally at peace, begins to flourish, and the people live in harmony and prosperity. As the new world order takes shape, the stage is set for a brighter future, where cooperation and diplomacy replace conflict and war. The world, finally, is at peace, and a new chapter in human history has begun. Chapter 11, The End and the New Beginning. In the end, the tides of tension receded, and even Greenland stood no longer under the shadow of uncertainty. The entire European Union, alongside NATO, led with resolve by Denmark and Finland, had taken a firm defensive stance, ensuring that any thought of intrusion would be met with unity and strength. Far to the east, Ukraine and Russia remained at the negotiating table, yet the guns had fallen silent. Hostilities, once relentless, had finally come to a halt, leaving space for diplomacy to take root where conflict once thrived. Across the Pacific, a profound shift unfolded. The United States stepped back, declaring it would no longer interfere in the question of Taiwan. In a historic meeting, Taiwan's leadership stood beside China's president, signaling a path toward reunification. The Taiwanese prime minister addressed the world with words that echoed through history. There was never truly a divide between Taiwan and China. From ancient times, they have been one. And today, we reaffirm that truth. Taiwan and China are one. And so, the world entered a fragile but hopeful chapter. In the story's final turn, two long-dominant leaders were brought to account and stepped aside, and the world, at last, found a measure of peace, setting its course toward a long-imagined reunification. From every corner of the earth, people of faith gathered not in division, but in shared purpose. Their voices, once scattered, rose as one, carrying a simple, enduring truth. That goodness and peace, though often tested, are the forces that ultimately prevail, not defined by dominance, but by decisions once thought impossible, now made real. This is a new beginning for the entire humanity. Writing foreword and author's note. This work is presented as a narrative constructed upon three distinct yet interconnected foundations, each contributing to the broader perspective offered within these pages. First, the story draws upon a selection of real-world events from recent years. These elements are included to provide context, grounding the narrative in circumstances that have shaped contemporary global discourse. While care has been taken to reflect the general essence of such events, they are not intended to serve as a definitive or exhaustive account of reality. Second, the book incorporates fictionalized material. Certain characters' identities and situations have been adapted, altered, or entirely reimagined for narrative purposes. Names and identifying details have been modified to respect privacy, ensure security, and allow the story to unfold with creative freedom. Third, this work explores potential interpretations of recent developments, including speculative outcomes and possible future legal or political consequences. These projections are inherently interpretive and should be understood as part of the narrative framework rather than established fact. The intention of this book is not to assert absolute truths, but to invite reflection on conflict and resolution, on power and accountability, and on the enduring human pursuit of unity and peace. Readers are encouraged to approach this work with discernment, recognizing the interplay between fact, fiction, and forward-looking imagination that defines its structure. The author home team records mindset blueprint.